Good evening, everyone. As a nice lady told you, my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the film and TV editor of Backstage. Very pleased to be here tonight for this SAG Foundation conversation with Martha Plimpton. This is an actor who's been delivering standout performances since the age of 8. She's earned 3 Tony nominations for her work in plays such as Pal Joey, Top Girls, and Tom Stoppard's Coast of Utopia. Currently, she stars on Fox's comedy Raising Hope as the straight-talking grandmother, Virginia Chance. More importantly, of course, she was in Goonies. Please welcome Martha Plimpton. So young to be a grandmother, right? But that's Thank you much for being here, and congratulations on the show, which really was one of the few bright spots of last fall's season.
One of the few? Well, I appreciate the compliment, thank you, but I also think it's an even greater compliment considering how much good television is on right now, actually. So in a way, I feel like we're lucky to be able to distinguish ourselves even the littlest bit, because there's so many good things to watch, you know?
A lot of the news shows last year, though, you know, they didn't make it past the first season, and you guys were the first show to actually get a full season pickup. That's gonna feel pretty good.
It felt great. Thank you. Thank you. No, we were very fortunate that we didn't have to endure a long, you know, stressful, agonizing period of waiting to find out if we were going to get picked up. And I mean, it showed that Fox was, you know, enthusiastic and supportive of the show, not just creatively, but also from the business side of things, which felt really good because that doesn't always happen. And yeah, so we were lucky enough to be able to kind of chill out a little bit. And not that you're ever like, you know, you don't get to rest, really. It's hard work, but at least you knew, you know, you're going to get to come back, and that felt really good.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk quite a bit about Raising Hope, but I want to go back to the beginning, if it's okay, and start.
It's going to be a long conversation.
You were born to actors Keith Carradine and Shelley Plimpton, who I believe met in the Broadway production of Hair.
They did.
It's great. And of course, your uncles are Robert and David Carradine. Your grandfather's John Carradine. Was it a foregone conclusion you'd be an actor?
I guess it must have been, right? I mean, you know, at the time it didn't seem that way. I mean, the truth is that I grew up in New York. My parents were never married. So I didn't grow up in amidst like a Hollywood family type of environment. That wasn't really my childhood. My childhood was more sort of living, you know, with my mom, my single mom in New York in a tiny, cheap apartment. And she was an actress doing plays and not making a ton of dough. And, you know, for me, starting to act was more about having fun in the summertime with people that we already knew because, you know, we didn't have the money to go to camp. Not that I would have enjoyed that anyway, I don't think. I'm not really one for forced fun. Do you know what I mean? So it just kind of happened that way. It happened slowly. My mother was not a stage mother. My mother did not take me to auditions and ribbons and bows and frilly dresses. She did not take me in for commercials, you know. In fact, the first and only commercial I ever did was entirely accidental. It resulted from a general meeting with a casting director named Sis Corman. Is this someone spray painting the wall back there?
I thought it was a dog.
No graffiti in the SAG Foundation auditorium.
Oh, it is a dog. Sorry.
Oh, it's a dog. Even better. Dogs.
I was like, that sounds like a dog.
I love them. They're so upstagey.
Never work with children or animals.
Right. But anyway, and I've done both. Anyway, so I had this general meeting as a kid with this casting director, Sis Corman in New York, legendary casting person, and turned out that Richard Avedon was going to be doing these Calvin Klein commercials. And of course, you know who Richard Avedon was. He was one of the great photographers of all time and had photographed some of the most beautiful and interesting and eccentric people in the world. And so my mother felt that it would not be beneath me to do such a commercial at the age of 11. And so I did. I was fortunate enough to do that. And it was because my mother thought, well, she's being photographed by Richard Avedon. Do you know what I mean? So it was a different kind of thing for me as a kid. It wasn't the pursuit of childhood fame that my mother wanted for me at all. And she instilled that in me at a very young age. And so the process was rather slow.
When did you first decide you wanted to try acting, like you for yourself wanted to give it a shot?
Well, it was always for myself. I think if it hadn't been for myself, my mother would not have allowed it. She wanted me to have a good time and be well-adjusted, as well-adjusted as can be expected. But she did not, her priority first and foremost was that I have a happy life and that I enjoy my life. And so it was drilled into me at all times that the second I did not want to do this, it would stop immediately. But it was always my choice. And, you know, like I said, we were not the open casting call kind of family, showbiz family at all. So from the beginning, it really was my choice. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I always, when I'm asked this question, which is a good question, I often struggle to find to pick a moment. I don't know that I've had one yet.
Was there a moment for
Maybe
you
tomorrow.
when it went from just having fun to you realize this was a lifelong career?
Yes. It took a long time for that. I'm very slow. I'm a late bloomer. I'm 40 years old. I've never been married. I have no kids, and I make my decisions very, very slowly. I better hurry it up. But it was when I was in my late 20s, and I had already been acting for, about 20 years, and had already, made a good, solid, decent career out of it. And I was doing a play called Hedda Gabler at Steppenwolf and Long Wharf. It was a joint production between the two theaters. I had joined Steppenwolf Theater Company in 98. This was 99 or 2000. I was 29 when I did it. And I was working with a director named Doug Hughes, who was a brilliant theater director in New York. He is the son of Barnard Hughes and Helen Stenborg, and he's quite a guy and a brilliant, brilliant director. And there was something, I can't quite explain it, but there was something about that experience. Okay, here's how I'm going to put it. That acting actually could be like a positive, important force in the world, and that it wasn't just something that you do because you're like motivated by ego or fun or whatever. That actually it was okay to not be embarrassed by it and to downplay it and to minimize it. Do you know what I mean? And that was a big realization for me.
I've heard a lot of actors say it took them a long time to realize that. I know, like William H. Macy says, it wasn't until he met David Mamet that he learned acting could be a noble profession. Yeah, he said it in fewer words and better. Yes, exactly right. That's exactly right. But he's not here, so.
Right. I mean, it's a fine line because you don't want to take it too seriously because then you get bad. And it's good to have a sense of humor all the time. If you take yourself too seriously, then you get all navel-gazy and too into yourself, and you're not responding and present and open, and the best times, the best experiences you have as an actor are when you're positive and free and open, even when you're doing something really dark and, So.
I believe you were 11 when you made your film debut in Rollover.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the process of getting that role?
I don't remember it. Yeah. And I don't know what happened. I guess I must have auditioned. It was a teeny, weeny, meeny role. where I played the daughter of a guy who I think ends up like killing himself because of some corporate scheme, some illegal thing. It was with Jane Fonda and Chris Christopherson. You could totally play the Kevin Bacon game with me, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm in a movie with Chris Christopherson. How weird is that? Sometimes it just dawns on me. I'm in a movie with Chris Christopherson. How cool is that? Anyway, so yeah, I was a little kid. I was like 11 years old. I shot for like a day. You know what it was? It was the day Reagan was shot.
Really?
Yes. It was the day that Reagan was shot. And I remember everybody was, there was a television on the set, and everybody had the television tuned into the news. I remember that. So yeah, it has nothing to do with the movie, but anyway.
Did you get to see Jane Fonda's reaction to all that?
No.
You're working with amazing actors like Jane Fonda and Chris Christopherson. Were you too young to be
I didn't really
intimidated?
work with them. I did not work with them. I was just in the movie with them. But they were like the stars. And I had like I said, it was like a teeny tiny scene at a breakfast table with like a little sister and a mom and dad and eating cereal. And yeah, I mean, it was a rainy day. I had one of those little pocket baseball games. Remember those? Those little early electronic pocket baseball. I played it for hours on this bus where all the extras were. I mean, I was an extra basically. I think I had like one line, like, you know, to my sister, like "stop it" or something. That was it. Yeah.
Did you ask your mom or anyone else in your family for advice on acting?
I didn't. I didn't. I do remember there's one, I was doing a play. It was my first play ever. I was 8 years old. And I remember we were doing a run through of the play and my mother was watching it. And at the end of it, I remember, you know, seeing my mom afterwards, and she was full of praise and so proud and totally, you know, just, she was very, very proud. And so I remember this is an entirely positive experience. And she said to me, "You were really good. I'm really proud of you. And just remember, even when you're not talking, you're still in the play." That was really good advice. Yeah.
After Rollover, you did The River Rat with Tommy Lee Jones, which was a much larger role.
Yes.
Do you remember the process of booking that role?
I had done the Calvin Klein commercials, and the writer-director of this movie, The River Rat, Tom Rickman, who had worked with Tommy Lee on Coal Miner's Daughter, saw the commercial and asked if, you know, had me come in based on the commercial. And I got the part. It was a stunning, incredible, life-changing thing.
Were you comfortable immediately in front of the camera?
That's a good question. I don't know if I was or not. I'll tell you what I didn't have trouble with. I didn't have trouble with pretending to be somebody else without thinking too much about it. You know, that's what's a great thing about kids, you know, is that if you don't put too much in their heads about it, they can be really great and have a really great time. But if you put too much in their heads and make them too self-conscious, then you're going to ruin it, you know. And so I was very fortunate in that I was working with people who didn't, you know what I mean? They didn't try to mold me or do something weird with my head. You know, they didn't try to mess with my head. They just kind of let me. I learned, you know, very early on from some very serious actors. I mean, that's the other benefit that I had as a kid. I wasn't working with people who didn't take the job seriously. I was working with Tommy Lee Jones. There's nobody in the world who takes the job more seriously than Tommy Lee Jones. Do you know what I mean? And Brian Dennehy, who's a lovely, hilarious, larger-than-life guy, but also very, very, you know, dedicated and very smart actor. And so I was watching all these very smart, capable, experienced people. You know, I wasn't working with, I don't know, I don't want to insult anybody, but you know what I'm saying? I wasn't working with, you know, the dregs. You know what I'm talking about? I was lucky. I was working with great people. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not naming names.
Did you ever actually formally study acting, or has it always been?
I didn't. There was a school, when I started acting more seriously, more frequently, I had to leave public school because, of course, you're not allowed to work if you're in public school. And I had to go to a private school in New York called Professional Children's School, which was a small school that had been founded by some mothers of children in vaudeville. That was how the school got started, because these kids were not getting any education, which of course was common for kids in vaudeville, you know. When I went there, it was mostly dancers from New York City Ballet, and some actors, lots of kids in commercials, and some young professional athletes.
Oh, wow.
Ice skaters, tennis players, and many of them were musicians who had come from Korea and Russia and other Eastern Bloc countries, who were these extraordinary, like, child prodigy musicians, like Midori, the violinist. I went to school with her. And, so it was a real mixed bag of very, very advanced, precocious, talented kids. So that's where I was going to school. And wait, what was the question?
If you ever formally studied acting.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, they had these, like, classes, like the drama class. And so we had a nice little drama class there. We had a nice drama teacher. And I remember she was the person who taught me, I think it was like in 6th grade, she made us do character studies where we would have to watch people on the street or in our life and then come in and do them, like basically their impressions. And I was doing one, and she said it was all right, but she said, she told me the difference between acting like someone and trying to be like someone. There were two different things. It was the difference between, like, affecting behavior or expressing behavior. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like internalizing it so that you are that person from the inside. And that was a big lesson that I learned there. But that was as formal as it got. I didn't go to college. I didn't study conservatory. None of that.
So in 1985, you played Steph Steinbrenner in The Goonies, produced by Steven Spielberg. Do you remember much about the process of
I remember the whole thing. It's terribly traumatizing. I have flashbacks frequently whenever anybody asks about it. No. Go ahead. What?
Oh, what was it like? How did you hear about the project? Was it an audition process?
Oh, yeah, we auditioned, for sure. I auditioned. Oh, yeah. I don't remember the audition process. I think I must have gone on tape. I must have auditioned quite a few times. I don't remember a screen test. I remember meeting Dick Donner. It was in New York. And I think I auditioned for Spielberg as well, although I can't be certain of that. I don't quite remember.
Did you realize at the time, because I think you were 15 maybe?
I was 13 and I turned 14 during the course of filming.
Did you realize what a big deal it was to be doing a Steven Spielberg movie?
Oh, for sure. Okay. Are you kidding me? It was huge. I mean, it was unbelievable. These sets were outrageous, and, E.T. and Close Encounters and Jaws and everything. Spielberg was, and still is in many ways, the be-all and end-all. And so, of course, I was, and of course, Dick Donner had made Superman, and I was, thrilled to be involved in such a thing.
And was the actual production fun? Because that movie is so much fun for so many people. I just wonder if it was fun for you guys.
So much of it was fun. A great deal of it was fun. I'm not going to say that being like stuck in a cave set for 8 hours with 8 screaming teenagers is fun. That's not that fun. And I was like I said, I was 13 going on 14 at the time, so I was very convinced that I was the smartest person in the world. And way more intelligent than any of these boys. Do you know what I mean? I was like listening to Mozart on my Walkman. You know, I remember Amadeus came out during filming, and I remember going to see it like 4 times and being like, I've seen Amadeus 4 times. So, you know, I thought I was really hot shit. And excuse me, hot stuff. So, you know, but that was like typical teenager being a dummy. But I did have a blast. I mean, how could you not? There were those water slides and the crazy special effects and, I mean, traveling, and I mean, it was an extraordinary experience. Absolutely amazing. And the wrestling, we just shot the video with Cyndi Lauper, and all those wrestlers showed up, and then the Go-Go's were there. It was so confusing and crazy. You know, it was like so much stimulation.
I forgot about the theme song.
Yeah, how could you forget? Oh my God, Goonies are good enough.
And in it, you're working alongside people like Sean Astin and Josh Brolin. Could you tell at that time that these were people who were going to have bright careers in front of them, or were they just
That's
kids?
what I was thinking at 13. You know, those kids are going to have great careers. Yeah. That's what I think about everybody I work with. You know what? You've got something. I'm very judgy that way.
Yeah. Did it really change things for you career-wise when the film came out?
I don't know if it did or not. Maybe it did in some ways because it helps to be in a big, fat, fancy, big budget movie. You know, maybe it did. But if it did, in what ways, I couldn't tell you.
You followed that with films like Mosquito Coast, Stars and Bars, and Shy People, where you're working with amazing people like Daniel Day-Lewis and Harrison Ford. Again, were you ever intimidated, or were you aware at that age of who these people were?
Yes, of course I was intimidated and nervous and wanting to do my best, and I have not lost that quality. I mean, it's very... You know, it's very exciting and thrilling to work with people you admire and whose work you appreciate or look up to, or, you know, are mystified by, or who are incredibly good looking. I mean, you know, but, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis at the time that I worked with him was not quite a huge star yet. He had just done Unbearable Lightness of Being, and I'm not sure that it had even come out yet here. And so the movie I did with him actually had a fantastic, huge cast, like Harry Dean Stanton and Laurie Metcalf and Joan Cusack and Celia Weston and all these fantastic actors, Deidre O'Connell, and a really fantastic cast of character actors. And so Daniel was kind of like, you know, the weird foreign guy, like that weird skinny foreign guy that nobody really knew very well. But he and I had a wonderful experience working together. I remember I introduced him to Percy Sledge. He really liked that. We used to listen to the tape in the car all the time. And we shot in this crazy weird town called Helen, Georgia, which is like modeled after a weird Swiss village. Like all the buildings look like little Swiss buildings. I don't know why. It's very strange.
It's like Solvang.
It's a little like Solvang. Yeah.
Did you look at Daniel Day-Lewis then and knew he had something?
Yes, I just said, you've got something, buddy. I don't know what it is,
you were right.
But you're going to be big.
You followed that with a great film, the Oscar-nominated Running on Empty, with the great, I mean, top to bottom, great cast, great director. Can you tell us about the experience of making that film?
That was a wonderful experience. Sidney Lumet, rest his soul, just recently passed. As many people know, he came from the world of, well, he came from the theater, but he primarily came from live television. And so he had a habit, which I wish more directors had, of rehearsing in an extremely thorough process where he would get a rehearsal studio, a large one, tape out the sets, just like in a theater rehearsal. You know what I mean? Where you put the different colored tape for whatever the different furniture is or whatever. Blocked it, just like we were doing a play. And we rehearsed the movie for 3 weeks, and we ran the movie like it was a play. He had all of his angles. By the time we were on set, he already knew everything he was going to shoot. We were done every day by 5 o'clock. And not only that, but we were so prepared and so well rehearsed that we had much more freedom than you ever have when you just rush on set and do it. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? There's, in familiarity and practice, there is confidence, relaxation, and intimacy that you just don't get without that. And he was brilliant at that. And so it made it so that he could make minor adjustments in between takes with a minimum of words, a minimum of interference, and could alter things, astonishingly well, and, very subtly. And I loved working with, I loved him. He was like a papa, he was a warm man. And that whole experience was wonderful. I loved it.
At this point, it seems like you were getting cast a lot as sort of the young girl wise beyond her years.
Oh, yeah, that.
Do you feel there was a reason you were put into that category, or was it just the best roles out there that you were going out for?
I think there's a combination of probably both of those things. I wasn't, and sorry, I wasn't, and I'm still not, sort of your typical, I was never sort of an ingenue type. That it was sort of, your typical kind of ingenue. I've always struggled to play, I've always struggled to play innocence, and with a T at the end, like that. And so I think it was a combination maybe of that and my own qualities as an actor, which, you're just unavoidable. You just have them. And then the kinds of roles that interested me. Mm-hmm. Because I did at a certain point in movies find I was starting to play kind of similar roles a lot. And I did start to get bored, and I did start to feel like maybe it just wasn't working out for me in movies.
You also worked shortly thereafter, I think, with Woody Allen on Another Year.
Another Woman.
Oh, Another Woman, sorry.
Another Year is the Mike Leigh movie. I just watched that on a plane. It's really good.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I saw it on a plane, too.
It's an excellent movie to mistake it for. It's a very good movie.
Another Woman. What's it like working with Woody at any age, but especially as a young woman?
Well, I haven't done it since, so that should tell you something. Yeah, it's weird. He hasn't called me. So weird. Jenna Rollins was in that movie, and I had an inordinate level of obsession with her from the time I was very young, and my mother had taken me to see Gloria in the theaters, which is it's in my 3 all-time favorite movies. I could watch it 100 times a year and never get bored. I think she was, in all of her movies she was spectacular, but in that movie in particular, for some reason it just gets me in my kishkas, you know what I mean? But I was very nervous to work with her. I was terrified. And so I was playing this character who was like her stepdaughter, and there was a scene where I was meant to be picking her up for a drive upstate to visit her father, played by the outrageously intimidating John Houseman, who at this time was, I think, about 207 years old. He lived a very long time. God love him. And so I show up in this scene at the door, like I knock at the door and she opens the door, and all I'm supposed to say is, traffic's getting pretty bad, are you ready to go? We should get going. And I did that thing. And I did it a few times, and Woody just did not like it. He just did not like it. He said that I was being, and he said it right in front of Jenna, and I was mortified. You're being very condescending towards her. You're being very kind. And I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, how the hell are you condescending when you say we better get going? We better get going. I mean, I just didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. And we must have done it 25 times.
Wow.
And I don't know if I ever did it properly for him. Obviously, I didn't. That's why he hasn't called me back. But that was a very intimidating process, very intimidating. He's, or he wasn't at that time, the most like effusive director, the most, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, I was shaking in my boots the whole time. But I ultimately had a really good time, and Jenna Rollins turned out to be one of the sweetest, most generous, most lovely actors to work with, that I've worked with before or since, yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she was just terrific.
Probably very different from Woody Allen. You worked with Ron Howard in Parenthood. Playing
Yeah,
the
totally
pregnant teen. Yeah. Other end of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
Having been
But he hasn't called me back either.
Hey.
Hey!
Yeah. Having been a child actor himself, and I hate that term, I'm sorry. I can't believe I
No,
just
that's
said
what
that.
they are. They're children and they're actors.
Do you think he felt a special affinity working with you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I imagine he does with many, kids, that he works with. He's certainly good at it, He certainly put me at ease, and he's a very warm and affable guy, you know what I mean? So maybe he does. I don't know.
And at this point, because you have so many great movies on your resume already, are you still auditioning, or are you getting offers?
Oh,
Really?
absolutely. Absolutely. I still audition. That will never end. I mean, unless you're maybe 5 people who, are known to be like box office people. Character actors are not box office people. We're just actors, so we have to audition like everybody else.
Some things must come as offers, though, don't they?
Occasionally, like a small part here or there, like a cameo type thing or a small role in an independent movie. But those are very rare instances, yeah. I learned a long time ago to let go of any resentment about auditioning, because they need to see you. They need to see if they like you. They need to know if you're, right for the role. And I can understand if it's like, if they're asking you to do something that you've done a bajillion times, you know what I mean? I can understand why some actors get pissed off. Like, come on, man, I've played that cowboy guy like 80 times. Like if what's his name?
Sam Elliott?
Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
If Sam Elliott had to audition to play a cowboy, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Do you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's understandable, and I get why they have to do it. It's also not always up to them, you know what I mean?
Are you good at auditioning?
No, I'm terrible at it. Horrible.
After all this time?
Oh yeah, no, it's terrible.
What?
And the thing that I always forget is that they know whether they probably know whether they want to cast you before you even start to read.
Yeah.
So it's almost not worth it to get so stressed out and fearful, but I just can't help it.
What's been your worst experience in an audition room?
Oh my God. That's hard. I had an audition once where I had to be on like an old-timey, like Busby Berkeley movie type audition where you're like on stage and they're all in the dark judging you and yelling at you. That was for a Peter Brook production of, I think it was Hamlet. And I might have been auditioning for Ophelia, and man, did I tank that one. I totally messed that up. It had to do with, it's always to do with fear. It's always to do with fear that you're not gonna, and the fear is the thing in every area with acting that must be done away with. It's the endless perennial challenge that must always, it's not like you get over it once and then you're home free for life. It's a process that you have to always kind of face and reface and reface. It's horrible.
Do you have any tips, things that help you
Beta
prepare?
blockers. preparation, right? Knowing your lines is good. Because then you have, at least you have that at least you have that confidence that you're not gonna mess up the lines and embarrass yourself. I've also heard that it's there's like some actors do the schemy kind of sneaky thing where they start and then they stop in the middle and they go, hey, and I'm just not happy with what I'm doing. Can I start over again? I've heard that some people do that and they think it works. I've never tried it. I've always been too, that's so creepy and weird. But some people say it really works. But other than that, it's advice that I should give myself more often about that I don't feel qualified to offer anyone else because I'm still working on it myself. But has mostly to do with just letting go, knowing that it's not really up to you. You're not going to make that magic facial expression. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't exist. And you just leave it up to, the forces, wherever they are. But that's hard to do no matter what. It's hard to do when you're in the grocery store. Do you know what I mean? It's just the actors have to do it on a more publicly humiliating level than most people do.
To the outside world, it seems like you had a very easy transition from acting as a teenager into taking on like more adult roles. Mm-hmm. Was it that easy on your end, or was it?
I don't think it was or maybe it was. Like I said before, it was hard. I went through a period there where I just wasn't getting any film roles. And I think part of it might have been that age transition thing. Part of it might have been that there just wasn't, as I got older, it became more and more clear that I wasn't going to be a leading actress in movies, and or at least in Hollywood movies, in the way that we think of leading actresses, and that I was going to be a character actress. And so I had to adjust my thinking, about that stuff. So, yeah.
Did that have anything to do with you getting involved in theater?
That had a lot to do with it.
Very active.
I had done plays, as I said, when I was a kid, and I had done plays as a teenager. I had worked a lot in regional theater, mostly at Seattle Rep. And, but I found that in the theater, it didn't matter what I looked like so much. It didn't matter that I didn't have, like, perfect blue eyes, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I could look like myself, and people are farther away, so they don't care as much because the camera, you know what I mean? And also there are more roles for women in the theater. There just are. And you have to go where the work is, you know what I mean? And I knew that if I was going to be challenged and do things that were different than what I had been doing, this like sassy teenage girl or sassy lady character, then the theater is where you get to do that.
Now, how did you get involved with Steppenwolf? Because you did quite a few productions for them.
I auditioned for a play. I auditioned in New York for a play called The Libertine, which was by Stephen Jeffries, and it was with John Malkovich. And I auditioned for the role of Elizabeth Barry, who was based on the life of the Earl of Rochester, who was this playwright and raconteur and libertine from the Restoration period of Charles the First, I want to say. Oh God, that's embarrassing that I don't know it. Anyway, some King Charles, and she was an actress, and he and not a very good one, and he saw her in a play. And he used her to revolutionize or to elevate acting to an art. It was the first time that in, sort of the history of theater that acting started to become more realistic, more naturalistic than merely presentational. At the time, there were literally manuals for actors of poses that you would do to indicate certain emotions or certain events, and literally facial expressions that you had to do. And if you didn't do them, you weren't an actor. I mean, this is really how it was done. And so the Earl of Rochester, who was a drunk and, a misanthrope, and saw this woman, fell in love with her, and decided to train her to, that lesson I was telling you about my little acting teacher in school, the difference between affecting it and being it. And it was the first time that audiences had ever seen that. And she became, the greatest actress of her day.
Oh. And that
Anyway, that was such a long answer. I'm really sorry. I talk way too much.
So was that play done at Steppenwolf? Mm-hmm. But you auditioned in New York.
I auditioned in New York, and we did it at Steppenwolf, and then I finished that. And then in 2 years later, I got a call from Martha Lavey, who's the artistic director there, asking if I would come back to Steppenwolf, and I was thrilled and delighted to do Playboy of the Western World there with Jim True and with Doug Hughes again. So I did. I went back, and it was such a fantastic experience. And at the end of that production, around the time when we closed, they invited me to join the company, which was thrilling and totally changed my life, really changed everything.
And some of the other plays you did there, you mentioned Hedda Gabler, but you also did The Glass Menagerie.
Yeah.
We were doing all these amazing American classics. Were these roles you had been dying to play, or they came along and you took the opportunity?
No, I mean, I think, it would have been crazy for me to not want to do those plays. Do you know what I mean? These are great literary works, and they're great dramatic works. And so, yeah, I mean, of course, I'd love to do a Tennessee Williams play. I had never had done it. And Laura is a very challenging, very beautiful role, and the play is very beautiful. Very difficult play to do, but at Steppenwolf, the company there is so good, and so yes, absolutely went into it gung-ho, 100%.
And who else was in your production of Glass Menagerie?
That was Tim Hopper, played Tom, and Molly Regan played Amanda beautifully, and a wonderful young actor named David New played the gentleman caller.
And is it intimidating, again, I'll use that word, stepping into such iconic roles? Did you purposely avoid seeing other versions of Glass Menagerie, or did you go out and look at them?
No, I just kind of do it. You can't worry about that stuff.
You also directed a production
I
at
did,
Steppenwolf of Absolution. What prompted you to take on that role?
Well, Martha Lavey, our artistic director, had asked me if I would like to try my hand at directing, and luckily Steppenwolf has many theaters. They've got the main stage, and they've got the studio space where they can do new works and more experimental works, and then they've got a garage space, which is basically like a black box, and it'll maybe seat between 70 and 90 people, and you can do new works there and, try your hand. It's a wonderful artistic home, because it means you can do new things, try new things, and that's what we're here to do, right? We want to grow and change and get better, and so I did. I chose a play called Absolution by this Canadian playwright named Robert William Sherwood, who wrote these very sort of high-energy, male-focused, male-dominated works that were very aggressive. There was a sort of noir quality to the writing, very fast-paced, very angular kind of approach to writing, not terribly interested in women or their feelings. And this was a style of writing that really hit me, and I just felt like this was something I could really have fun with, you know what I mean? And it was a short play. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't like some massive, crazy thing. It was a good first play for me to do, I think.
Is it something you took to? I mean, would you like to do it again?
I loved it, yeah. I would love to do it again. I loved it.
And you've worked with so many amazing directors. Were there things that you gleaned from them that you put to work?
For sure, absolutely. And I called many of them, too, before I started, because I wanted their advice. And I wanted some things on more on what not to do than what to do, because I think when you're working with new people, you want to take their cues, you know what I mean? But I called Doug Hughes, this wonderful director, and I said, so you must tell me, I'm about to start this thing, and you must tell me what are some of the things that I absolutely must not do. And he said, there's only one thing that you mustn't do. And if you don't do this one thing, then you'll be able to do anything. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, you must never, ever, ever take away an actor's confidence. No matter what you do, no matter how bad they are, how wrong their decision, or how, you must never, ever undermine their confidence. They must always know that they're safe. And that was the best advice I could have gotten, because the company of actors that I had really loved working together and loved working on the play, and we had such a good rehearsal process, and I was inordinately grateful to him for that advice, and I think it's true.
Is it something you'd be interested in doing for film or TV, directing?
No.
Really? Just to hit the stage?
Well, you know, with movies and TV, it's like you've got this crazy schedule, and it's exhausting. You know, in the theater, you wake up like 9-ish, get to rehearsal, you know, like 10, 11. No, I don't like all that people yelling at me, things that need to get done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not for me. I like to be in a room and working with actors and have, you know, and I like other people to do their job well, and I like to be collaborative in that way. But I don't like producers, you know, or studios. I wouldn't want that. I don't think I'd be good at it. And also it takes a lot of math knowledge, you know, with angles and lenses and I failed algebra 3 times. I would not be able to do that at all. I admire them. I mean, people who do it well, I have the utmost respect. You've got to be thinking about 40,000 things at one time. And I just think I'd go bananas. I don't think I'd like it.
You also did a lot of work.
No offense.
You did a lot of plays on and off Broadway. I mentioned the 3 Tony nominations.
Are you guys freezing, by the way?
It's very cold up here.
Freezing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's for our benefits.
I feel like I'm
but under the
getting
lights.
quieter and smaller, sinking into myself in the cold.
Do you have a preference between doing on-screen work or off-stage work?
Well, I don't. I love doing plays, and I love the process of making plays, and I love the process of working on our TV show a lot. I really love it. And I have enjoyed making movies, although not all the time. It's very hard work. But it all depends on the job. You can be doing a play, and it can be, you know, a horrendous experience, and you have to do it every night, and that can be really hard too. It just depends on the job. I just like to go where the fun work is, where the good time is. Do you know what I mean? And the medium is not important to me.
So speaking of fun times, good times, brings us to Raising Hope, which is such a fun show. And just curious if you guys are having as much fun making it as it is to watch.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. I mean, I'm feeling very fortunate and very lucky that I am having such a good time, because television, working on a single camera show is arduous. You know, it's like 14, 16-hour days. And, you know, it starts at, 4 or 5 a.m. on a Monday morning. It ends about the same time on a Saturday morning. So if you're not loving the people you're working with, and you're not, loving your writers and, the cast and everything, it can be really a drag. So I feel very, very fortunate that, Garrett Dillahunt, oh my God, that guy is like, he's a total dream come true. He's so funny. He's so smart. He's such a sweetheart. He's so cute. He's just wonderful, and I can also rely on him. Like if I'm not sure about something, or if I'm not feeling confident about something, I can talk to him about it, and I know that he will be helpful and he's on my side. Do you know what I mean? And that's a wonderful thing to have in your fellow actors when you're working on a TV show, is to know that everybody's on the same team and wants the best for each other. That's a wonderful feeling. Garrett is the best.
One of the things I actually love about the show is how much in love Virginia and Bert are. Even after all these years, you actually don't see that a whole lot on TV. And I'm curious, was that chemistry instantaneous?
I feel like it was. I just feel like, Garrett and I have sort of known of each other and known each other not well, but we've sort of crossed paths a lot. Like he was in Deadwood with my friend Peter Jason back there and with my father, and I had gone to the set and I had met Garrett. He actually killed my father in Deadwood, so there was that. And then he had done a play called Eye of God, originally, that I had seen in Seattle, another play directed by Doug Hughes, and that I subsequently did the movie version of a few years later. So Garrett and I had, our lives were sort of, passing in the night a lot. And I'd always wanted to work with him, but I just instantly liked his demeanor. I just instantly liked that he's very, very dry. He's very stealthy, with his humor. He can be very stupid and very silly too, which I also like. But the main thing about Garrett is he's smart. He's a very smart guy, and I'm very attracted to smart people, very much so.
Now, you've done television before. You, most notably, probably The Defenders, and you were nominated for an Emmy for your work on Law & Order Special Victims Unit.
Yeah, I carried a finger in my bag.
You've done a couple of the Law & Orders.
I had a lot of scenes with Ice-T in that one.
Oh, really?
He was awesome. He really was. I'm not kidding.
I love him on that show.
Yeah, he was great.
I love that he's partners with Richard Belzer.
I know.
That brings me back every week. Were you actively looking to do TV?
I wouldn't say that I was actively looking for a series necessarily, but I am always actively looking for work. So that qualifies. Yes. Yeah.
And how did the script come to you?
Well, I was working on an independent movie in Canada, in this tiny, tiny movie with Peter Stormare called Small Town Murder Songs, which is actually coming out kind of soon.
It just came out, or
is it? Did it just? I feel like it's. Yeah. I don't know. It's coming out or it came out. I don't know. It's a tiny little movie, and I just got a call that they were going to be FedExing this pilot script, and they were moving pretty quickly. They were sort of nearing the end of their casting process, and they still hadn't found anybody. And so I read it, and I thought it was hilarious, and talked to Greg Garcia on the phone the next day, and had a great conversation with him. And then instead of flying home, I flew to LA to test for the show.
And had you ever been through a pilot season before?
I had never done a pilot season. I had never come out to LA to look for a pilot. I had never done that. I had only come out if there was a specific show that I was going to test for. But I had never come out to LA on some sort of open-ended, I'm a very firm believer, particularly if you're from New York. The best time to come to Los Angeles is when you're invited. Otherwise, it can be very, very dreary and depressing. And I know this from my own experience in some cases, but also from the experience of my friends and fellow actors who languish during these pilot seasons in this depressing limbo where they have to sit in these endless string of horrible rooms with women that they think are 10 times more beautiful than them, or men that they think are 10 times more buff than them, or whatever. I mean, it's a constant compare and despair environment that's really soul-killing for most people. And so I like to avoid that if I can. It means that I have been broke many times, but that's a bargain I've been willing to strike, you know what I mean? So no, the only time I've come out really for that is when there's been a specific show that I had an audition for, that I chose to audition for because I thought I'd have a chance at it. I don't like to cast too wide a net. Do you know what I mean? And this is partially strategy, but it's also partially my good fortune that I'm able to do that. So yeah.
I've been surprised and very pleased with a lot of what they've been able to get away with on the show. I mean, just in the pilot, killing off the mom, really surprised me. I'm wondering, does Fox often come to you guys, do you know, and ask you to pull back on things?
I have no idea, and I don't know. I don't think that they do too much.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing that around, and Greg would say,
Yeah.
Greg would tell us, he is not a frightened man. Greg is a very, very gutsy guy. So we would know if there was anything.
Yeah.
No, I think Fox likes the show. I think they're supportive of the show. They like Greg's sensibility. They like his writing. And, you know, I'm very grateful to them that they like it because it means we get to do it, you know, every week.
What about you personally? Has there ever been something Virginia did or had to do that you, as an actor, you know, had a hard time?
No.
No.
No, I have a hard time seeing that happen. I mean, the only thing I would ever object to doing would be something that would seem like it was just being done for the sake of like a pandering kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But even then, I probably wouldn't put up too much of a fight because ultimately, you know, I have to trust that Greg knows what he's doing. And it's, you know, I made an agreement, you know, I signed a contract. I'm there to do my job and, you know, and I trust Greg implicitly. But there's not a whole lot I wouldn't do. No. I vomited on a baby, for God's sake. I think it should be clear that there's not a whole lot I wouldn't do. I called her a bitch. I'm taking some risks here.
You talked about Garrett. I'm curious about some of the other cast members, working with Cloris Leachman. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Lucas, who's a fairly new face to this business.
Totally new. Uh-huh.
What's it like being on a set like that, combining kind of these different styles?
Greg did an awesome job of casting people that he felt could work well together. You know, that's part of the casting process too. You know, you're not just picking people randomly and throwing them in a box and hoping that they, you know, grow something. You're looking at the different people, and obviously we tested together. We all read together many, many times. So, you know, he can see. He can go, okay, these guys have a good rapport, a good chemistry. Cloris is another thing altogether. Cloris is on her own road. And it's quite an exciting road. I mean, this is a woman who, she's won more Emmys than any other human, I think, actor, as far as I'm aware. She's one of the great comedians of all time. She's completely, talk about fear. This woman has no fear. I mean, there are other prices to pay as a result of that. But they're entirely worth it because she is completely, relentless is not the word I want to use. She's completely, she's just irrepressible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. She's just unbelievable level of energy and presence and enthusiasm and gameness. I mean, talk about being willing to do anything. That woman put shaving cream in her mouth for a joke.
That was really shaving cream?
Yes.
Oh.
She just did that. It was not expected. We were using real shaving cream, and she wakes up and she put it in her mouth and ate it. Twice. It was not whipped cream. I want to be very clear on that.
That's what I assumed it was.
Yeah. I mean, this woman, you know, she's something else.
And I love that the show has been introducing friendships for Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with Shannon's character on the show. It's been a really fun evolution.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, well, that's the beauty of a family show. You know, you've got all these different characters, and you can sort of follow them around and see what kind of stupid stuff they get up to. And yeah, you know.
How much, if at all, are you like Virginia? Do you bring any part of yourself to her? Is that inevitable?
I'm sure it's inevitable, you know. Yeah, probably. But I mean, the writing, I think it's more, what does the writing bring out in me? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't say that I look at the writing and go, oh my God, I totally relate to that. I would say that the writing inspires certain behaviors and ways of behaving. that make what the character is. You know what I mean?
And is there anything that the writers have learned about you that they've been able to work into the script, or?
I don't know. I'm afraid to ask. No, I don't know. I mean, it's going to sound weird, but I like to leave the writers alone. I don't go to visit the writers' room very often, if at all. In fact, I don't think I did visit the writers' room once last season. I don't want to interfere with what they're doing. It may change next season, and hopefully if we have a third and fourth season, please, that, you know what I mean, that those relationships might develop in new ways and different ways. But in the first season, having never done this before and having no experience being a regular on a show, I just wanted to see how things worked. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to interfere with them or, you know what I mean, try and get them to write something for me. I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let the process be what it was and, enjoy it. Because the fact is that gratitude is the overwhelming motivator for me right now. Do you know what I mean? Conniving and manipulating will come later.
They've had you do so much, though. I'm curious. Has there ever been a time you got one of those scripts and you were like, "This is going to be a really big challenge"? Like, what's been the biggest challenge?
You mean on Raising Hope?
Yes.
No, I mean, the biggest challenge is usually just making sure Clara stays in the room. So if there's a lot of scenes with Clara, it's like, okay, these are going to be, all right, we're going to be there for a while because God knows where she's going to end up. No, but as far as the material goes, or feeling, I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing for me to say, it's actually been kind of fun and easy,
Yeah.
I try not to overthink these things. Do you know what I mean? It's a comedy,
Yeah.
It's a fun, light comedy that has, thank goodness, a very warm and genuine guilelessness to it and heart to it. And I don't want to overthink it too much or get too in there. You know what I mean? I don't want to mess with it.
Sort of along
There'll
those
be
lines.
time for that. There'll be time for that when we're all bored and losing our minds and want to create drama. Do you know what I mean?
Season 3, right?
Yeah, well, let's hope season 5.
It's funny because I read a very positive review of the show, but it called Virginia a terrible mother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And do you think of your character as a bad person, a bad mother?
Well, they didn't call her a terrible person. Okay? They called her a terrible mother. There's a difference. Listen. Everybody's a terrible mother. I don't know one mother who isn't a terrible mother at some point. You know what I mean? There is no perfect way to raise kids. If there were, everybody would be perfect. And no one would ever kill anybody. No one would ever knock off a liquor store. And you know what I mean? No one would ever get so drunk they vomit on somebody's bed. Do you know what I mean? The world would be perfect if every mother was perfect. But people are imperfect and people screw up and people are fallible and they have flaws and they're judgmental and they're jerky and they're selfish and they don't think about other people and they're, broke and they're struggling and they're all these different things. So if that makes somebody a terrible mother, then, but the truth is it wouldn't be funny if she was a great mother. That's what the show's about. It's about people who are screw-ups and they don't know what the hell they're doing, right? That's the whole point of the show. It's not Leave It to Beaver, you know what I mean?
I actually think she's a really good grandmother. She just might not
They're
have been a
making
great
her
mother.
a better grandmother. I think they may have gotten some focus group stuff why does she have to call the baby a bitch? Do you know what I mean? They might be trying to get a few more extra female viewers in there. I'm not going to put that past them. But I got my eye on them. If she starts to get too nice, then I'll get annoyed. Then I'll be like, hey, guys, this wasn't what I signed on for. And then I'll be like, oh, it's okay, though. Go ahead. Just want to keep my job.
And the baby that plays Hope, there's more than one.
There
I
are two of
presume.
them,
There are
yeah,
two of
you
them.
bet.
So adorable.
So cute.
Such great timing. I assume that's editing.
Sometimes it's not.
Really?
Yeah. They're very good actors. No, they're watching what we're doing and they're responding, and they're watching us and they're laughing, or they're, their eyes are getting big. That's what babies do, right? They go, and then that's like the range. But it's always genuine. It's always coming from a real place.
Do they just keep a baby? Do they just keep a camera on the baby constantly to catch those reactions?
No. They have a way of doing it to minimize their amount of time on set, because you can't have babies on set all day long. It's not fun for them. So there are ways to work it so that we shoot them out quickly, or stuff like that.
And is any improvising ever done on the set?
We don't do too much improvising because Greg and his writers work extremely hard to make the scripts as good as they can make them, and we're not as funny as they are. So there's that. But there's also very little time for improvising on on a single camera show. On a multi-camera show, maybe you have more opportunity to do that stuff. But like I said, we've got between 22 and 26 pages to shoot in 5 days. So improvising is something you do when you have time and room to breathe. And we don't have a lot of that. But luckily the scripts are good enough. We can, if something's not working, obviously we fix it. It's not a dictatorship, and everyone is free to improve upon things if they feel that they can or they have to. But so far we don't do too much improvising, which is probably good because I'm really bad at it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm terrible at it. I wish I was better at it.
All that theater background, did you do?
You don't necessarily do a lot of improvising in theater either. At least I hope not. I don't like all those exercises and can't we just work on the script?
Is it challenging to work with a baby? I mean, just in terms of...
No, it would be challenging if they were horrible.
Yeah.
If they were like awful, awful brats. But they're not. They're the sweetest. I mean, they're little babies. How can they be brats? I hope they don't turn into brats. No, they won't, though. They won't, because their parents are really great, and the vibe is, it's not that kind of vibe,
But do they ruin takes, by crying, or is it challenging to
We're
have
talking
an
about the
infant?
babies, right?
Yes.
Not chorus?
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, which is more challenging, chorus or the babies?
No, they don't ruin takes. Not
Really?
at all. Mm-mm.
So they're the perfect actors.
Not any more than we do with, screwing up lines or whatever we do. We screw things up way more than they do.
Really?
What can they screw up? They're babies. They just,
I would think one of the hardest jobs of the show would be not laughing during takes.
Yes, we laugh a lot.
Who ruins the most takes?
By laughing? Lucas, without a doubt. But it's usually because Garrett is doing something to undermine him and make him laugh. Yeah.
Garrett's one of the best, what I call background actors I've ever seen. He's always doing something crazy.
Scene stealer.
In the background. I find
Shameless.
I usually have to watch it twice, once to watch it and then once to go back and just watch what he's doing.
I know. That's why he's a genius. I'm serious. That's why he's the best. I love him.
I should mention that you're here. One of the reasons you're in town today is because you were nominated for a Critics' Choice Television Award.
Thank you.
Which sometimes critics, they just get it right. Like I looked at that list of nominees and I was like, this is perfect,
Well, that's nice of you to say. I mean, I was delighted that to go there and represent the show, you know what I mean? And the critics have been supportive of the show, which has been really, really helpful, really nice. It's, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, there's a lot of good television right now, and has been increasingly over the last few years. And so it's harder and harder to distinguish yourself and make something that people are going to want to watch. And so it felt really good to be able to represent the show among all those other fantastic shows and all those other fantastic performers, It was nice.
Do you personally have like a favorite moment or episode from the last year?
I have a lot of them. I mean, I think the episode Say Cheese, so the family portraits episode, I really like that one a lot because to me it sort of encapsulates what the show is about. Virginia just behaves atrociously during this entire episode. You know, she's just a monster of neurosis and hysteria and dictatorial just craziness and perfection about this stupid family portrait thing. And in the end of and you know, nobody can stand her, and they all want to divorce her and leave her and abandon her because she's so awful. But at the end of the episode, it didn't feel at all treacly or phony to me that she would be revealed as someone who just desperately felt so inadequate. And that's where all of that was coming from. Do you know what I mean? That terrible fear that she was not creating the life for her family that she wanted to be able to give them. And that this was a way that she could create that somehow. And I like that quality in the writing. I really do. It doesn't feel put on to me. You know how it does with some sitcoms or shows that ending thing, it's like, you know, but now I've learned. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. And so I think the writing was really super smart on that episode. And just for me personally, just, you know, in the role, it's one of the ones I've had the most fun doing.
And what, of all the roles you've played, what's been your hardest role?
Well, I don't know. I haven't found it yet. No.
It could be physically, it could be just a character you had trouble connecting with.
Laura was very difficult in Glass Menagerie because, I don't think so much because the role was necessarily like so different from me or anything, but because the play itself is a very painful play. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Glass Menagerie, but it's very closely based on Tennessee Williams' own life and his own mother and his own sister. It's a very autobiographical work. And so it is fraught with psychological pitfalls and sorrow and sadness and loneliness. And it's a very hard play to do every night. And the character of Amanda, the mother, is this extremely overbearing, difficult woman. A woman that you ultimately should have extremely empathetic feelings for in the end. But in the process, it's like, Jesus, woman, she's just an oppressive presence in her children's lives. And so doing that play night after night, I think I don't know a single person yet that I know personally who's done that play who hasn't had a really hard time. Because at the end of it, you're just like, my God, if I have to do this, it's just really hard on you. It's the family dynamics of it, everything. It's just, ugh. You just can't wait to get out of that damn apartment. Do you know what I mean? Like Tom in the play. So I would say that's one of the more challenging experiences I've had. I found it very hard to live in the world of that play without becoming really, because I'm not a person who would put up with it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I found it very, very hard to play a person who had to live in that, and, you know, it just was very hard.
How do you generally prepare for your roles? Are you a big researcher, or?
Well, it depends on the role. I mean, for Coast of Utopia, I had to do a lot of research, did a lot of reading, tons of reading. Traveled to Russia for a week to research the plays and the people that the plays were about, and so yeah. I mean, it depends on the material, of course, but yeah.
And if you could pick a favorite role, I don't even know if that's possible.
That's really hard. That's really hard. I like almost all of them. I really liked doing Hedda Gabler. I was 29, and that's the age of the character in the play. And I felt like there were things in that play, you know, certain things, they just come to you at the right time in your life, and you're working on them at a time when you're most receptive to them. And so I loved the character of Hedda Gabler, even though she's a hateful character. I actually had such a good time playing her, and loved the role, and I felt an affinity for her and for it. And also in The Coast of Utopia, I played this two roles, actually, two different roles. And one of them was a crazy nut, lunatic woman who kind of goes bonkers at the end. And I loved it because not only is it Tom Stoppard, who gives you the best words in the world, in the theater, the best words you could ever be given. I mean, it's just, oh, it's such a gift to get to do that. And I got to wear awesome outfits, totally beautiful dresses made by Catherine Zuber, who just created these extraordinary gowns with these beautiful corsets. And let's face it, I'm in it for the costumes. I'm in it for the wigs and the outfits. I like playing dress up, okay? I have a flair for the dramatic, and that's what I like the best. So, does that answer your question?
You're probably not getting to take home too many outfits on Raising Hope, I'm guessing.
I love that I get to work in my pajamas every day.
It seems like you've always worked. Is that an accurate perception, or were there lean times?
No, there've been many lean times. And there have even been times when I've been working and it's been irrelevant because they're paying you $200 a week, if that. But that's just how it goes. I mean, I've had to rely on the kindness of friends and family at times, and I've had friends and family have to rely on me. I mean, that's just, what goes around comes around. You're all a part of the same community, and yeah, there are periods of lean, absolutely.
Have you ever considered, doing anything else other than acting? And what brought you back from that precipice?
Right. Oh, gee. No, I can't say that I have, although lately I've thought very, very seriously about like chucking it all and opening an ethnic condiment store. Because I love to cook, and I love experimenting with cooking, and and I love going places and then bringing back their spices. Like I'm on my own little personal Silk Road. Do you know what I mean? So I thought maybe I could open a shop that sells like every kind of curry, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, or like lingonberry jam, or whatever, like local delicacy, weird things that you can spread on things or add to things. I'm not going to sell you the chicken. I'll sell you the things to put on the chicken. Does that seem like a good business model?
Yes.
Should I do that? No, I mean, that's, but honestly, all right, I could raise chickens. I'd like to have some free-range chickens. This kind of thing.
And then you could.
I'm talking total opposite here.
So you could sell the chicken then for the condiments. You could combine
I
the two
don't want to
businesses.
kill them.
Do you find at this point in your career the roles you're getting to play are better than the roles you got to play in younger years?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're. I guess so. Maybe they're better. I don't know. I got to play a lot of really great things for many, many years, and I don't. No, like I said before, there might have been times when I was kind of having to play the same thing over and over again for a while, but it never stayed bad too long, and I always seem to keep moving. It's a very peripatetic, constantly changing life. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it never has stayed in any area of negativity for so long that it beat me. I don't know.
Are there any roles you're really dying to play?
No, I don't. That's another thing I'm not good at. I'm not good at watching other people do something and going, you know what? I could do that better. Give me a shot. No, I've never had that. I don't do that. I think usually work comes to you when it's meant to come to you, or you're something that's right for you or that's good for you to do will come, on its own. And I honestly have never been a very good strategizer. I don't even necessarily believe in it. I think as an actor, you just have to be open and be ready and willing and game. You know, good, game, and generous, like Dan Savage says. 3 G's. Do you know what I'm saying? Well, he's talking about sex.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, you know, like being an actor, I think.
Same thing.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. And then the good things, the fun things, the right things will come along. But I don't know. I haven't ever gone like, I must play blah, blah, blah. Do you know?
Blah, blah, blah is a good part.
It's
A lot of
fantastic.
people going out for that.
I don't know if I could do it.
Is there anything you don't like about acting or being an actor?
I don't like how you have to be so public and on all the time. I wish that wasn't the case. All this social media and stuff like Twitter and everything is really fun. And but I think as an actor, it's very risky, you know, because I just don't want to. I don't want to give too much information, but at the same time, I also don't want to. I don't know. It's just a weird thing right now. I don't quite know how to navigate it. You know, I joined Twitter because it's good for the show, and it's good to, you know, it's good to sort of help publicize the show and the things around the show. But I don't know. I'm not very good at it, and I don't. I mean, there are some very funny people on Twitter that I love, but I'm not. That's the PR side of it. I think is really what I'm getting at. It is a part of it that I'm back and forth on.
Yeah. Have you ever read anything about yourself that
sure,
that cracked you up?
That cracked me up?
Yeah, that was just so off base.
Well, I've read things that made me enraged, but not. No, I mean, crack me up. No, I probably should crack up. That would be a better attitude to have.
Yeah. Well, how do you deal with that when you?
You just ignore it. That's all you can do.
You've mentioned a couple people, Doug Hughes springs to mind, but is there anyone who sort of mentored you when you were younger, or even I mean, you can have a mentor at any point in your life, honestly.
Yeah. Many people. I have had the good fortune of knowing many brilliant, kind, sweet, wonderful people. And I think it's part of the fact that I was an only child with a single mom and had a large community of people around me and around us to sort of care for us. But yes, I have many people like that in my life.
And I hesitate to use the word advice, but I guess that's the word to use. I imagine people must ask you all the time on advice on making it in this business or surviving it in this business. I'm sure people would love to have a career half as prolific as yours. What do you say to them?
The first thing I say to most young people who ask me how to get into show business is don't. Don't bother. Not because I don't think it's a great way to live and a wonderful career path, but you know, many people just kind of, I don't really know why they want to do it. Do you know what I mean? But that's also kind of a half a joke, because if I could turn around and say it to myself, I wouldn't take my own advice either. You know what I mean? No, the most important thing that I wish I had known when I was younger, which no young person really knows, is to be less serious about everything. Like to just take myself and everything less seriously, to be less of a perfectionist, because perfectionism is it's phony. It's like a crutch that actually prevents you from having to take any risk and from having to do anything out of your comfort zone, or from having to fail. And you know, what is that? It's Beckett that said, so you failed, fail again, fail better, right? This is like, to me, I wish I had heard that, you know what I mean, when I was younger, and that I think that's why I wish I had taken improv as a young person. I just read Tina Fey's book, which is so funny and so good. But the thing that struck me most about it, outside of just her obvious brilliance and just fantastic intelligence and everything, was what she learned from being in improv at Second City as a young person. And the lessons that she came out of Second City with about positivity, about responding with the yes, coming in with your own idea, not just repeating the other person's idea. Do you know what I mean? And being willing to be lame, being willing to suck. You know what I mean? Like, those are things I think are essential for actors to be able to do. And you know, I think you get that from working in the theater and from improvising, and if you don't have it from that, then you have it only from experience, you know, from the experience of having finished something and gone, God, why, I should have had more fun than I did. You know, I didn't let myself have enough fun, you know.
Can you tell us if you're working on anything right now?
I am in the very unusual position of knowing that I have a job coming up. So I am taking a break, which is something I have not really done ever, at least in many, many years. I mean, a real break. I'm not taking, it's not like a traveling break. It's not like, you know, it's like an actual sit down and just be quiet. This is obviously a deviation from that plan. But I intend to return to it tonight when I get on a plane and fly back to my little haven that I've carved out for myself for the summer. But before that, I did this live performance of Company with the New York Philharmonic.
Right.
With this crazy cast of insanely talented, awesome people in front of the New York Phil. I mean, holy moly. For Stephen Sondheim, I mean, we had like 13 seconds of rehearsal. None of us rehearsed in the same room at one. Talk about a challenging experience. I mean, boy, was that ever. I mean, wowie zowie. I think the first time Stephen Colbert even did the whole thing was in front of the audience for the first time. Well, you know, because he tapes his show 5 days a week, and you know, he's a busy, busy man, and everybody was like that. You know, Neil Patrick Harris was rehearsing on Skype, and you know, Katie Finneran was, you know, rehearsing on Skype, and it was crazy.
I've never heard that, doing rehearsal over Skype.
Neither have I. And you know, everyone said at the end of it, so was it amazing? And the truth is it was, but I didn't want to say so because I didn't want them to think it was okay to do that to us. It's not okay.
I actually saw it in the theater last week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I
Oh,
can't believe I
good.
forgot to mention that to you.
So it's weird because they filmed it and now it's on screen. So it's kind of like I did a show and a movie. It's kind of a funny, weird thing. It's like now it's kind of living on, which doesn't usually happen when you're do live performance.
And there's more showings this week, and you can go to companyonscreen.com.
Thank you.
No, but it was very, very sold out when we went there.
Oh,
so
good.
I think they added some more.
That's awesome. That's great.
So you got to work with Stephen Colbert,
I
the
certainly
actor.
did. Yeah, he's awesome.
It was very strange seeing him not as Stephen Colbert.
Right, because that character he does is so complete, you know.
Yeah.
No, he is one of the nicest guys. He is, oh my gosh, talk about energy. You talk about nonstop. I mean, there's a reason why certain people become humongous cultural touchstone people, right? They just have energy. It's just like electrical current coming out of them. And they're so smart and they're so energized and they're so creative. And he is one of those people, without a doubt.
And then you go back to work on Raising Hope fairly soon, I'm guessing.
Yeah, beginning of August.
And do you know anything about the new season?
Nothing, not a thing. Like I said, I don't ask, you know, and you know, Greg has been pretty private about it. It's, you know, they're writing, so they go off and they do that. And
If there was a dream storyline for Virginia, do you have anything in mind, or do you leave it to the writers?
No, I always feel so stupid when people ask me questions like this. I honestly, I just don't think about, I just don't go like, you know what would be great is if I could be like water skiing and like singing at the same time, and I could have guys in sequin bathing suits behind me. I mean, that would be great, actually.
Maybe you should take that to the writers'
Text him
room.
about that. Sequin bathing suits.
Well, I want to congratulate you on the show. It's really
Thank you.
terrific. And it's so
Thank you.
nice to see you on a weekly basis.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be seen on a weekly basis. Thank you for watching
Yes.
so
Thank you
much.
so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.